Hello, Bobcats. This is Mrs. Wilhite, 5th grade math. We're still in chapter 4. We're moving into lesson 5, dividing greater numbers. It is a 5th grade standard, and I'm hoping that at the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to divide greater numbers by a multi-digit divisor. Why, Mrs. Wilhite? Why are we learning this? Well, someday you're going to have car payments, and they're going to be payments that are multi-digit numbers, maybe $350 payments to a car, or payments to a house that are even more than that. You're going to have to be able to divide that amount that you owe into months. So you'll be saving up to purchase things. You want to figure out how much you need to put into each month so that you can buy whatever it is you want. So again, the skill today of dividing greater numbers is something you will use in everyday life. What do you already know about the relationship between the remainder and the divisor? All right, what do you already know about the relationship between the remainder and the divisor? Well, I know that 7 will divide into 16 2 times, and there's actually 2 as a remainder. When I think about 2 and the remainder and 7 is the divisor, I know that from my experience, the remainder has to be smaller than the divisor. If that number 2 was bigger than 7 or was the number 7, I can create another group so I know that I have the wrong answer. So again, the relationship is if the remainder is smaller than the divisor, then you probably have the correct answer. If your remainder is larger or equal to that divisor, then something went wrong. The steps for division have not changed. We're still going to estimate first. We're going to see if our answer is going to be close to something that we estimated earlier. We're going to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. That mom, our dad, mom, sister, brother, right? Once we have those steps in place, it kind of helps us when we divide. After we divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, we want to think, is our answer reasonable? Does our answer make sense? Is it close to the estimate that we got earlier? All right, let's go ahead and try example 2, Math in My World. Estimate the quotient of 46,534 and 152. Then divide. Is 36 a reasonable quotient? Explain. So we're going to try to figure out, is 36 a reasonable answer or no? Well, if I was going to estimate these, I would probably estimate 46,534 to 46,000. You could also change it to 47,000. That's fine too. Okay? And then I would estimate 152 to 200. I want to be able to estimate so that I can do this as mental math, right? I want a quick answer that I can reference at the end to see if it's reasonable. So I can do 2 divided into 46, and so that allows me to do that mental math. I know 2 goes into 4 2 times, 2 goes into 6 3 times. Okay, and I know these zeros will cancel out. So the answer would be close to 230. So if we go back, is 36 a reasonable quotient? Absolutely not. It should be definitely an answer that's in the hundreds. You can see there's 3 boxes here. And 36 has 2 digits. It's in the tens place. It's not reasonable to think that would be a close answer. I know that I should get an answer pretty close to 230. If it's not anywhere near that, like if it's 36, then I know that I do not have the right answer. All right, I went ahead and I put my steps over here to help me. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide. How many times will 152 divide into 465? I'm going to try 3. Step 2 is multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 5 is 15. And then 456 works. I can go ahead and subtract 456. And then we'll see what's left over. I'm going to have to borrow here. So it becomes 15. So there's 9, and I bring down that 3. Go ahead and cross off the bring down. I'm going to go back to divide. I'm back to step 1. How many times will 153 divide into 93? It will not divide because it's too big. I can't even make one group. So I can subtract to 0 because 152 times 0 is 0. Well, there's 93, and I can bring down that 4. So I can cross off bring down. Now I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to go back to divide. How many times will 152 divide into 934? Well, I'm going to divide, and I think 152 will go 6 times. So now I can go ahead and multiply 152 times 6. Well, that's 31. Bring up my 3. 6 times 1 plus 3. 912 definitely worked. So after multiply, I can now subtract 912 to get my remainder. Notice my remainder, 22, is smaller than my divisor, so it's okay. So I determine the answer is 306 with a remainder of 22. This is reasonable because it's close to my estimate and my remainder is smaller than my divisor. Okay, we're moving into independent practice. I'm going to go ahead and put my steps so that it helps me. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. I'm going to start with estimation. I'm going to need to estimate. Well, it's pretty darn close to 50. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and estimate to 100,000. 91,000 is close to 100,000. So I'm going to go ahead because then I can do my mental math. I know 5 can go into 10 2 times. 1 0 cancels out. So the answer should be close to 2,000. If I don't get an answer close to 2,000, then I know it's incorrect. I'm going to start with divide. How many times will 51 divide into 91? Well, that's 1 time. After I divide, I can multiply. 51 times 1 is 51. I can go ahead and subtract. Well, there's 40 left over. And after I subtract, I can bring down the other 9. And now I have to think, how many times will 51 divide into 409? Well, it's close to 50 and it's close to 400. I think it's going to be close to 8. I'm going to try 8 and see if it works. 51 times 8. I'm moving on to multiply. Well, 408 definitely works. I can go ahead and subtract 408. And there's 1 left over. After I subtract, bring down that digit. The next digit is an 8. So I'm going to bring down that first 8. Well, 51 will not divide into 18. It's too small. So I'm going to put a 0 and go ahead and subtract 0. And there's 18 left over. Going back to bring down the other 8. Now I can go ahead and divide. How many times will 51 divide into 188? Well, I'm going to guess 3 times. And I'm going to go ahead and multiply to check. Okay, well, I know 3 times 1 is 3. 153 worked. So after multiply, subtract 153. Okay, and what's left over? Well, I have 35 left over. Okay, there's nothing left to bring down. So I think I have the right answer. Let's double check. I'm going to go ahead and put in, I surmise the answer to be 180 with a remainder of 35. I know it's reasonable because, look at my remainder. My remainder is definitely smaller than my divisor. The only thing I notice is it can't be 180. Look at my estimation, 2,000. I forgot to put that digit up there, the last one. When I said that 51 divides into 188, I need to make sure I put that 3 here. I'm so glad that I get to check the reasonableness of my answer, because my estimation made me realize that I forgot to put my 3. That makes more sense when I look at the estimation. I know that it's pretty darn close to 2,000. So I surmise the answer to be 101,803, remainder 35. That makes more sense. All right, we're still in independent practice. I'm going to write down my steps. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. I'm going to make sure I estimate. Well, it's close to 50, my divisor, groups of 50. Now I'm going to estimate my dividend, and I want to choose a number that I can do mental math. So I'm going to choose 50,000, because I think that'll be easy to solve in my mind. And I know that 50 goes into 50 one time. And there's 3 zeros. So my answer should be close to 1,000. If I don't get an answer close to 1,000, then I know I better check it, just like I did that last problem. So 52 divided into 36,712. Let's go ahead and start with divide. Well, 52 divides into 367. I'm going to try 7 times. Let me go ahead and move this over so I have a little more room. Let's try 7 and see if 52 times 7 will work. Hopefully it'll get me close. Well, it's 364. That's pretty darn close. So we can go ahead and move on to subtracting. Let's subtract 364. There's 3 left over, and after we subtract, bring down. Well, there's a 1. 31. Go back to divide. How many times will 52 divide into 31? Well, that's 0 times. And 52 times 0 is nothing. I can go ahead and subtract the 0. And I have 31, and I can bring down that last step there. Bring down that 2. And I can go ahead and divide. I'm going to go back and divide 52 divided into 312. Well, I know 52 goes into 300 6 times. So I'm going to guess a 6 when I divide. And now I'm going to multiply to see if I'm close. 52 times 6. Well, it's 31. It was perfect. If I subtract it, there's nothing left over. And 706 is pretty close to my estimation. So I concluded the answer is 706. It's reasonable because it is close to my estimation. All right, we're moving into problem solving. A farmer plows a cornfield in the shape of a rectangle that has an area of 15,840 square yards. If the length of the field is 132 yards, what is the width of the field? So I'm going to take 15,840 and I'm going to divide that by 132. Well, I'm going to go ahead and estimate. So I know what my answer is close to. Well, I'm going to estimate to 30. So I'm going to put that larger number in groups of 30. And then I'm going to go ahead and say it's close to 15,000. Well, I know 3 goes into 15 5 times. These zeros cancel out. So my answer should be close to 500 for the width. Otherwise, I better look at the problem again. I'm going to go ahead and start with divide. How many times will 32 divide into 158? Well, just like my estimation is 500, I'm going to go ahead and guess that 5 is what I would divide by. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply. And I'm going to multiply 32 times 5. Let's see if we get close. 160 is too big. Oh no, we're going to have to change it to 4. We got to make it smaller. So let's go ahead and put our 4 and multiply by 4. Well, I know 2 times 4 and 3 times 4. 128 worked. What's after multiply? I can go ahead and subtract 128 and see what's left over. Once I subtract, then I can bring down that 4. Well, there's 30 left. 304. And then what's after bring down? Well, I'm going to go back and divide. 32 divided into 304. I'm going to go ahead and try 9. I know that my estimation was 500, so if I pick 9, that's going to get me close to my estimation. Now I can go ahead and multiply 32 times 9 to see if it worked. 288 does work. So after I multiply, I can go ahead and subtract 288. And then we'll see what we have left. Well, we're going to have to borrow here. And then we're going to have 14. Subtract 8 is 6. 9 minus 8 is 1. After I subtract, I bring down. Well, I have a 0 to bring down. How many times will 32 divide into 160? I'm going to go ahead and try 5. So now I can multiply 32 times that 5 to see if I need to adjust. Well, it's exactly 160. I can subtract it, and there's nothing left to bring down. So the question asks, what is the width of the field? Well, I understand the answer is 495 square yards. And there's nothing left over. I know it's reasonable because 495 square yards is pretty close to my estimation of 500. I can go ahead and move on. All right, Bobcats, it's that time. What did you learn today? Well, in summary, I learned that you can estimate when you divide. If you estimate, you can go back and see if your answer makes sense, if it's reasonable. Also, your remainder should be smaller than the divisor. If it's not smaller than the divisor, then you got the quotient wrong. You can make more groups. So again, estimate as you solve, and then make sure you check that remainder. Is it okay as a remainder? Is it reasonable? Thank you, Bobcats, for all of your attention.